She didn't choose him. Nobody asked her to. Nobody asked him either. In their world, that wasn't how it worked. Two fathers, or maybe a father and a matchmaker, sat in a courtyard, drank water, talked about the harvest, and then talked about the thing that actually mattered: their children. Somewhere during that conversation, a deal was struck. And a woman who had spent her entire life grinding grain in her father's house was now legally bound to a man she may never have spoken to alone. This is the story of how Mary met Joseph, not the Hallmark version. The real one rebuilt from archaeology, Jewish legal texts, and the silence of the Gospels.
It seems the rains came just in
Let's
time
get the
this year.
scale right first, because it changes everything. Modern Nazareth is a city. 80,000 people, traffic, apartment buildings, restaurants, hospitals. First century Nazareth was none of those things. In 2009, archaeologist Yardena Alexandra of the Israel Antiquities Authority excavated a residential structure in Nazareth dating to the early Roman period, the first dwelling from Jesus' era ever found in the town. The find confirmed what scholars had long suspected: Nazareth was tiny. Based on the density and distribution of archaeological remains, pottery coins, agricultural installations, burial caves, the best estimates place the population at somewhere between 200 and 400 people. To put that in perspective, that's smaller than most apartment buildings. That's a single floor of a modern office tower. That's a village where if a dog barked at midnight, half the population heard it. There was no wall around Nazareth, which tells us it had no military or economic significance worth protecting. There was no paved road. The houses, small, rough structures of local limestone, some carved directly into the bedrock hillside, clustered together along the slope, connected by dirt footpaths worn into the rock by generations of bare feet and donkey hooves. The village had one reliable water source, a spring at the base of the hill, the site now known as Mary's Well in modern Nazareth. Every woman in the village walked to this spring at least twice a day. Every family depended on it. It was the center of the social world, the place where you saw everyone, heard everything, and couldn't avoid anyone. In a village like this, anonymity didn't exist. Everyone knew who your parents were. Everyone knew what your father did for a living. Everyone knew if you were sick last week, or if your goat got out, or if your daughter was getting close to the age when a father starts thinking about a match. And everyone had an opinion about who should marry whom. In first-century Jewish society, marriage was a family matter. Specifically, it was a father's matter. The Mishnah, the written compilation of Jewish oral law, codified around 200 CE, but reflecting customs and legal practices stretching back centuries before, lays out the rules clearly. In Tractate Kiddushin, Chapter 2, Section 1, a father has the authority to betroth his daughter. During the developmental stage called Na'ara, which the rabbis defined as beginning around age 12, the father exercised this right on her behalf. This doesn't mean women had no say at all. The Mishnah also records that a woman could, in certain circumstances, refuse a match, particularly if she had reached the age of Bogaret, full legal maturity, usually around 12 and a half, and regional customs varied. But the baseline reality in a rural Galilean village was clear. The father initiated the process. The father negotiated the terms, and the father gave or withheld approval. Mary's father tradition calls him Joachim, from the 2nd century text, known as the Proto-Evangelium of James, would have been the one to begin the search. Or maybe search is too grand a word. In a village of 200 people, there were no dating agencies, no letters of introduction. The eligible men were known to everyone. The process was less about searching and more about deciding which family, which son, which arrangement served everyone's interests best.
Mary.
The criteria were practical.
Are you
Could the
certain?
man feed a family? Did he have a trade? Was his lineage respectable, meaning? Could he trace his ancestry through recognized tribal lines? Did he keep the commandments? Was he known as honest? And here's the part
Mary,
that's hardest for a
come
modern
inside.
audience to absorb. The father was not looking for someone his daughter would love. He was looking for someone his daughter could survive with. In a world where subsistence farming and manual labor were the difference between eating and not eating, the question wasn't, will they be happy? It was, will they be alive next year? Matthew 13:55
I am
identifies
someone's wife
Joseph
now.
as a tekton. The word has been traditionally
must leave.
translated as carpenter, and that translation has produced 2,000 years of nativity scenes featuring a man with a wood plane and a workbench. But tekton in first century Greek was a broader term. The Roman writer Celsus used it dismissively to describe manual laborers. Josephus used related terms for builders and craftsmen of various kinds. In the context of Galilee, a tekton was most likely a general construction worker, someone who worked with stone, wood, and possibly metal.
She will have
Houses
to wait.
in Nazareth were built from locally quarried limestone blocks. Roofs required wooden beams, sycamore or oak, from the surrounding hills topped with branches, mud, and plaster. Building and maintaining these structures was a tekton's primary work. But there's another factor: Sepphoris. Just 6 kilometers northwest of Nazareth, about an hour's walk on foot.
Yes.
The city of Sepphoris was undergoing a massive rebuilding program under Herod Antipas.
She's here
After a
again. She
revolt
always
and
is.
subsequent
And looking as
Roman
she always
destruction
does.
in 4
She doesn't have
BCE,
to look, does
Antipas
she?
made Sepphoris his capital and poured resources into its reconstruction. The city needed builders, lots of them. Archaeological excavations at Sepphoris have uncovered an impressive first-century city.
He likes
A theater
the thorns.
seating up to
Yes, look at him
4,000
chew.
colonnaded streets, an elaborate water system, mosaics of extraordinary quality. Someone built all of this. Workers were drawn from surrounding villages, and Nazareth was the closest. Joseph almost certainly worked at Sepphoris. Every morning, a walk of about
believe this
45
path is
minutes
best
each
for her
way along
future.
a ridge
And
path
what of
that
the
connected
risks?
the two
We will face
settlements.
them together.
At
Then let
dawn,
it
he
be so.
left.
I heard
At
tell of a
dusk, he
family across the
returned.
square. Ah, yes, Joseph's
Limestone
family, the
dust on
carpenter.
his arms,
Skilled
calluses
hands and
on
good
his
heart, they say.
palms,
Indeed.
the
Thank
earnings
you, my
of a
friend.
laborer in his
Something's
belt,
wrong.
perhaps a few
Tell
bronze
me.
pruteaux or a small silver
Not
coin.
now.
Both Matthew and
Grind.
Luke trace Joseph's
carpenter.
lineage to the house of David.
My daughter
In the
is
first century,
accustomed
this
to a
was a matter
comfortable
of
home.
genealogical
I understand.
record. Families maintained their tribal affiliations carefully, particularly for purposes of land inheritance and temple service. But being a descendant of David in first century Galilee carried no political power. David's throne had been empty since the Babylonian exile over 500 years earlier. The line of David
Measure
had
cut.
scattered into
Measure
farms
cut.
and workshops
This
across
way,
the country.
faster.
Joseph was by any material measure
Watch your
a
step.
working-class man, respectable, reliable, not wealthy, not powerful, not famous. Just a builder
working,
who
man.
walked to
We must
work
finish
every
this
morning
section by
and
nightfall.
walked home
Lift,
every
lift,
night
lift.
with enough skill to construct a
back with that
house
mortar.
and enough reputation to be trusted with another man's daughter. The negotiation for a marriage would have covered several key points. First, the mohar, the bride price. This was a payment from the groom's family to the bride's family. The Mishnah Tractate. Ketubot 6:5 sets the standard mohar for a virgin at 200 zuz, a significant sum for a laboring family. In practice, the amount was negotiated based on the family's means, and it could be paid in installments or partially offset by other arrangements. Second, the ketubah, the marriage contract. This document specified the husband's obligations to the wife, food, clothing, and conjugal rights. It also specified what the wife would receive in the event of divorce or the husband's death.
We are bound to this.
The ketubah was not a romantic gesture. It was a legal protection for the woman, a financial guarantee that she would not be abandoned without resources. Third, practical matters.
Thank you, Joachim.
Where would the couple live?
Let us begin.
In most cases, the bride moved into the groom's family compound, the insula arrangement where multiple generations shared a courtyard, and the sons built additional rooms as they married. Joseph would be expected to prepare a living space before the wedding. How long did these negotiations take?
Myself to you.
Hours, days. We don't know.
I accept.
But in a village where both families were already known to each other, where the reputations, the land holdings, the lineages, and the work habits of every family were common knowledge, the negotiation was less about discovery and more about agreement. You already knew what you were getting. You just needed to settle the terms. The Eruzin ceremony.
I take you as my wife.
The formal betrothal was
take you
simple
as my
enough to
husband.
describe in a paragraph and heavy enough to shape the rest of her life. According to the
Mary.
Mishnah Tractate Kiddushin 1:1,
Are you certain?
a woman could be acquired in marriage by one of three methods by money. Kesef, meaning an object of value given to her in the presence of witnesses, by a written document shitar, or by sexual intercourse bia, though this
Mary,
last method
come
was
inside.
discouraged by the rabbis. In practice,
Yes,
the most
Mother.
common method was kesef. The groom handed the bride an object worth at least a peruta, the smallest denomination of currency, and
God's
spoke
grace
a
finds me in
formula,
this place.
hare at mekudeshet, libatabaat
May
zokadat
grace fill
Moshe
this house.
v'Yisrael. Behold, you are sanctified to me with this ring according to the law of Moses and Israel. The witnesses confirmed,
I am
the
someone's
father
wife
approved.
now.
And from that moment, under Jewish law,
And
the
I
couple
must
was
leave.
married. Not fully married in the modern sense, they would not live together or have sexual relations until the nisu in the formal wedding ceremony roughly a year later. But legally irrevocably bound. If either party wanted to end the arrangement, a formal bill of divorce get was required. This was not an engagement
This
that could
brings
be
honor to
called
both our
off with a
families.
conversation. This was marriage
must
without
consider the path
cohabitation.
set before
Mary
us,
stood in
Joachim.
that room, a woman
And what
with
of her will in
dust-stained
this?
hands
The
and a
caravan is
patched
delayed.
tunic, and watched a
must make
small
arrangements.
object pass from his hand
She
to
will
hers.
have to wait.
2 witnesses confirmed it. Her father nodded. Her mother stood behind her. And that was it. No white dress, no processional, no ring bearer, no reception. Just a transaction in a stone room on an ordinary afternoon that bound her to a man she may not have spoken to alone more than a handful of times.
Did you hear about the
She
harvest
walked
down by
back
the
to her
valley?
parents'
Yes.
house afterward.
It seems the rains
same
came just in
house,
time
the
this year.
same room, the same sleeping mat. But she was no
She's
longer
here again.
just
She always
Joachim's
is.
daughter.
And looking as she
She was
always does.
Joseph's wife.
She doesn't
The
have to
law
look,
said
does she?
so. The witnesses confirmed it. And somewhere in the back of her mind, or maybe right at the front of it, she knew in about a year she would leave this house forever. She would move across the village into a room that
He
was
likes the
being built for
thorns.
her right
Yes,
now
look at him
by a
too.
man whose hand she had just touched for the first time. The life she knew was ending. The life she didn't know was beginning. And she had no idea, none at all, how short the distance was between this ordinary moment and the most extraordinary night of her life.
And what
That
of the
evening,
risks?
after the
will face
witnesses
them
left,
together.
after the
Then
courtyard
let it be
emptied,
so.
after her mother
I heard
began
tell of a family
preparing the
across the
evening
square.
meal,
Yes,
Mary
Joseph's
may have
family, the
climbed to
carpenter.
the roof.
Skilled hands
The
and
flat
good heart, they
rooftops
say.
of
Indeed.
Galilean
Thank you, my friend.
houses served as
Something's
extra
wrong.
living space, especially in warm months. Families
now.
slept up there on hot
Grind.
nights. Women
You are a
dried
carpenter.
figs and
Yes,
grain
sir.
up there during
My
harvest.
daughter is accustomed
And from
to
the
a
roof of a
comfortable home.
Nazareth house
I
built
understand.
into the hillside, you could see across the village the other houses, the terraced fields, the path to Sepphoris. And if you knew where to look, the place where your future husband was stacking stones into walls. She sat up there, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she went straight to the grinding stone because the flour wouldn't grind itself and tomorrow's bread wasn't
Measure
going to
cut.
wait for her
Measure
to
cut.
process her feelings.
This way, faster.
We don't know. The Gospels
Watch your
don't
step.
record the interior life of women on ordinary evenings, but we know what her world felt like. The same
Keep
world
working,
it had
man.
been
We
that
must finish
morning.
this section
The
by
same
nightfall.
dust, the
Lift,
same
lift,
spring, the same faces,
your back with
but
that
now
mortar.
rearranged around a single new fact. She belonged to someone. In a year, she would leave. In a year, she would sleep in a different house. In a year, everything she had known since birth would be behind her. She didn't know what was coming. Nobody in Nazareth did. They thought it was just a marriage. Every arranged
ring
marriage in
symbolizes
the
the
ancient
agreement.
world
I
began like
understand the
this one.
terms, Joachim.
Two
Let
families,
the village
a
witness this
contract,
covenant.
an exchange of something small, a coin,
I
a ring,
understand the
a
terms.
written promise. And
We
then
have
the
a deal.
waiting while the groom built
Keep
the
your
room
wits
and the
about you,
bride
Joachim.
finished the last months
Don't
of
let
the
them
only
sweet
life
talk
she'd
you out
ever
of the
known.
land.
Mary's betrothal was
Yes,
ordinary,
the dowry seems
completely
suitable. Agreed.
unremarkably
The
ordinary.
arrangement is settled.
The same ceremony
peace be upon
performed
them.
in the same way
The
for
time
the
has
same
come.
reasons in
Yes.
1,000 villages across
We are bound to
Israel,
this.
generation after generation after
The
generation.
time has come.
Nobody
It
standing
cannot be
in that
avoided.
courtyard could have
Yes.
known what was coming.
I understand.
Not the witnesses,
Welcome to my
not
home,
Joachim,
Joseph.
not
Thank you,
Anna,
Joachim.
not Joseph,
Let us begin.
and especially not Mary, who walked home that evening with a small
You are
object
certain
in
of
her
this
hand
choice?
and the reasonable
There
expectation
is
that
no
her
other
life
path.
would unfold the way every woman's life in Nazareth had always unfolded: a wedding, a home, children work, and the slow accumulation of years.
With this,
She was wrong,
I pledge myself
but she
to
didn't know that yet. For now, it
I
was just
accept.
an evening in Nazareth, just a woman walking home.